Today we'll be working in my workbook called Saul, Israel's First King. And this covers 1 Samuel chapters 8 through 15. When we get to the table of contents, we have completed the first 5 chapters. Basically, in chapter 1, Samuel is the leader, his 2 sons are leaders, and the people are not happy. So they ask Samuel to give them a king. They want to be like the other nations around them, and they were not happy with the leadership of Saul's sons. They were not good leaders anyway, so that's part of that. Samuel is upset because God is their king, but the people would not accept all the latest reasons why you shouldn't have a king. So Samuel goes back to God. God decides it's Saul that's going to be king. And then Saul is chosen to be king in chapter 2 by a roundabout way. Saul goes to search for his lost donkeys of his father, and he and his servant end up in Ramah. Samuel is there. Samuel knows Saul is the one that's going to be the next king, invites him to the sacrifice meal and proclaims him to be king and anoints him there. Saul is not, basically gives the impression that he thinks Samuel is rather crazy. So now that's Samuel who's anointed him as king, but he also wants the people to realize it's God who's decided on him to be a king. So Samuel sets up a group of people, calls all the tribes together in Mizpah, and through lots, he comes down to who's going to be king. And through lots, they go from the tribe of Benjamin to the clan of Mitra, I believe, then to the person, Saul. And so when they've picked the person, Saul, he's nowhere to be found. He's hiding in the supply area, although he's a head taller than everybody else. So it's like, how is that possible? But he's hiding because he doesn't really want to be king. But he's proclaimed king there. Then in chapter 4, we see a situation where he does do well as a king. The Ammonites threaten the city of Jabesh to take it over. And in order to make a peace treaty, the people of Jabesh have to be willing to have the Ammonites gorge out the right eye of all the men in the city. So the city of Jabesh called for help from all the Israelites. Saul stands up and insists all the Israelites fight. He is able to gather 330,000 soldiers from Israel and Judah and kills the Ammonites and saves the day. Yay! And so everybody sees him as a great and wonderful king. And so this is one of the best examples of his kingship. Then in chapter 5, we still have this procedure to transfer leadership to Saul. He's been anointed king. He's been proclaimed king by Lot. Now Saul is going to transfer the leadership of the country that he has. Samuel had the leadership now to Saul, and warn the people again that this is not what God wants, but God will still bless them as long as they still follow God's laws. And so that happens in chapter 5. So now we go to chapter 6. Saul's sinful sacrifice. 1 Samuel 13, 1 through 23. Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at Michmash and in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah in Benjamin. And the rest of the men he sent back to their homes. Jonathan is Saul's son. How many years have passed since he had become king? 2 years. How many men did King Saul choose for his military? 3,000 men from Israel. How much of his military were still stationed at Michmash? 2,000 were at Michmash. On the map, Michmash is spelled Machmash, and it's hard to find. Find it and circle it. Okay. Let's find this hard to find. I think it's because it's there. Find Bethel and circle that. Where are you, Bethel? Oh, okay. Hmm. How much of his military was stationed at Gibeah? 1,000. Find Gibeah and circle that. Okay. Must be real close. Gibeah. Who's the leaders of the troops at Gibeah? Jonathan, his son. Jonathan attacked the Philistine outpost at Gibeah, and the Philistines heard about it. Then Saul had the trumpet blown throughout the land and said, "Let the Hebrews hear." So all Israel heard the news. Saul has attacked the Philistine outpost, and now Israel has become obnoxious to the Philistines. And the people were summoned to join Saul at Gilgal. Find Geba, circle it. Find Gilgal, circle it. Okay. Geba. Geba. Where art thou, O Geba? Geba, 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 Geba. You guys have probably found it already quicker than me. Where is Geba? Oh, wow. Tiny little guy. Tiny little guy there. And then we want Gilgal too. Gotta be so close together. Oh, there's Gilgal. Well, I've got a box. I don't want a box. I want a circle. Oh, it's too late. Okay, well, no, it isn't. Circle. Gilgal. Well, yeah. Circle. Gilgal. Okay. Who was Jonathan? Who was his father? That's Saul. Who was his mother? Now that I would have to look for. So hold on here. You could look for it in the book if you have it. Um, his mother's name is Ahinoam. 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 What is the minimum age Jonathan could be at this time? And if you look at it, he would have to be a minimum age of 20 because they are not put into battle until their age of 20. David, of course, will be the exception. Who attacked the Philistine outpost at Gibeah? Jonathan did. Who did Saul proclaim had attacked Gibeah? Saul did. He proclaimed himself did it. The Philistines assembled to fight Israel with 3,000 chariots, 6,000 charioteers, and soldiers as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They went up and camped at Michmash, east of Beth of Evan. Where had Saul and his army had traveled to? They were at Gilgal and Geba, right? I'm pretty sure, yeah. Who now is in Michmash? The Philistines. Detail the military might of the Philistines. 6,000 charioteers. Excuse me, 3,000 chariots and 6,000 charioteers, and numbers as many soldiers as sand on the seashore. Which army is bigger, Saul's or the Philistines? Sounds like the Philistines is bigger. The city of Beth Evan is not on the map. It's located east of Michmash, north of Gilgal, south of Ophrah, and west of the Jordan River. Mark a spot in the map for Beth Evan. Okay, I will do that. It's got to be right in here. Based on the size only, could win this pending battle between the Philistines and the Israelites? The Philistines. And I'm noticing here that they are way far into the Israelite nation, the future nation of the Israelites, or the present nation. When the Israelites saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard pressed, they hid in caves and thickets among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops were with him were quaking with fear. In fear, the Israelites hid in 5 different places on the west side of the Jordan. What are they? Caves, thickets, rocks, pits, and cisterns. Some Hebrews crossed the Jordan to where? The Gad and Gilead. Circle Gad and Gilead. That's not a good circle. That's a better circle. Where was Saul and his troops? They are Gilgal. What is the emotions of the troops with Saul? They're quaking in fear. Saul waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel, but Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. How long did Saul wait for Samuel? 7 days. What was starting to happen to Saul's troops? They were beginning to scatter. In order to keep his troops from leaving, what does Saul decide to do? He decides to make the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Saul was only able to offer one offering before Samuel arrived. Which offering did he do? Burnt offering. Did Saul say anything wrong with what he did? No, he did not. Samuel goes, "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that the men were scattering, and that you did not come at the set time, and that the Philistines were assembling in Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." Saul gave 4 excuses for handling the sacrifices himself. What is his 4 excuses? The men were scattering. Samuel didn't come at the appointed time. The Philistines were assembling, and he hadn't sought the Lord's favor. What had Samuel specifically ordered Saul to do regarding the sacrifices at Gilgal? To wait for him to do the sacrifices. Although Samuel had told this to Saul at least 2 years earlier, it is likely that the Israelites had an annual celebration at Gilgal. So Saul's sin was twofold. He did not wait as Samuel had commanded, and he did not have a priest or prophet to do the sacrifice. And see 2 Chronicles 26:16 through 21 for another example of a king being punished for handling his own sacrifice. The king isn't all powerful. He still needs priests to do the sacrifices. That is according to law. That was not ever accepted. Except no exemption allowed. Basically, what I'm saying. Samuel says, "You have done a foolish thing," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command." So we hear a lot of prophecy here. And you have not kept. If you had continued with the Lord's commands, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. That is, Saul's family and the Benjamites would have been kings of the kingdom over all time. But because Saul did this, his kingdom will not endure. It will not go down to his son or his sons. And so now the Lord has sought a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people. Samuel is prophesying about the next king, who he doesn't know who it is. He just knows the Lord says there's a new king that I want to anoint. And Samuel doesn't know who it is. We will know that later. Of course, you all know it's David. But Samuel doesn't know. We know that for sure. When he goes to pick David, he doesn't realize which one of Jesse's sons is going to be the future king. What was the foolish thing that Saul did? He he did the sacrifices without a priest involved. If Saul had kept God's command, what would Saul have obtained? The kingdom over Israel for all time. This would probably have meant that Jonathan would have been the king after Saul. What is the punishment that Saul received? That his kingdom will not endure. Does Samuel give the impression that God already has another man in mind to be king? Yes. Saul is still remains king for another 38 years. So even if God already has in mind another king, he doesn't change leadership as quick as this sounds that Samuel think it is. Then Samuel left Gilgal and went up to Gibeah in Benjamin, and Saul counted the men who were with him, and they were numbered about 600. Even though it only says Samuel, Saul, Jonathan, and the army must have followed close behind. Draw a line from Gilgal to Gibeah. Okay, Gilgal, Gibeah. Aside from Samuel, who else went to Gibeah from Gilgal? It had to have been Saul, Jonathan, and the army. How many men are in Saul's army now? 600. How many total men did Saul start with? I believe it was 3,000. Let's see, I believe it was 3,000. Right. How many men did Saul lose resulting from the fear of the Philistine army? 2,400 men were lost due to that fear. Where are the Philistine army at this time? So they're located at Michmash. You remember the last time we talked, they were at Michmash, which is there. Note, the distance between Michmash and Gibeah is only 1 mile. The size of the Philistine army was not a surprise. Do you think it was smart of Jonathan to attack the Philistines at Gibeah? Why or why not? Based on all the information we have right now, it was probably not a wise thing. But as we get to know Jonathan, we will see that what he does is more directed by the Lord than anything. But right now, just based on the information we have, it doesn't look like it was very wise based on size. Saul and his son Jonathan and the men with them, were staying in Gibeah in Benjamin while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Raiding parties went out from the Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned toward Ophrah in the vicinity of Shual, another toward Beth Horon, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the wilderness. So this is the map of the story. I always appreciate it when I find these things on Google. Someone has already mapped this all out. So the Philistines, they're looking at, you see the line toward Ophrah, and we see a line towards Upper Beth Horon. Let's see. Ophrah, another one, Beth Horon, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim. The valley of Zeboim is probably also the Dead Sea Valley, or those things. But anyway, so you see the 3 areas that they were approaching. They're the blue. Israel is the red. Saul is at Gibeah. Underline Gibeah. Okay, underline Gibeah. Where are you, Gibeah? Gibeah. Who else is also at Gibeah? Jonathan, Samuel, and Saul's army. The Philistines are camped at Michmash. Underline Michmash. Okay. Michmash. The route of the first Philistine raiding party listed is in Ophrah. Underline Ophrah. Okay. The route of the second Philistine raiding party listed is to Beth Horon. Underline Beth Horon. Okay. The route of the third Philistine raiding party heads east, right the valley of Zeboim at the end of line 3 area. Well, I'm not going to do all that, but you got it. It's right in here. Valley of Zeboim. What is the one weapon the Israelites have that the Philistines don't have and could win the battle for them? God. If they leaned on God. This is what the whole book of the Bible is for us to understand what happens with God and what happens without God. And then not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, otherwise the Hebrews will make swords and spears. So all Israel went down to the Philistines to have their plow points, mattocks, axes, and sickles sharpened. The price was 2/3 of a shekel for the sharpening plow points and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening forks and axes and for repointing goads. So on the day of the battle, not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or spear in his hand. Only Saul and his son Jonathan had them. Now a detachment of Philistines had gone out to the pass at Michmash. So basically, the Philistines controlled all the weapons. The price of the weapons were very expensive. So only Jonathan and Saul had weapons. And we end this chapter in this about the battle. And so we're about ready to, it looks like everybody's about ready to fight, and we end the chapter. Anyway, let's see what this chapter, what this crossword has. Somewhere, I guess that's that one. Okay. How many days was Saul to wait for Samuel? 2 across, 7. 5. What town was Saul to meet Samuel? Gilgal. 6. No blank could be found in all Israel. 6. No blacksmith could be found in all Israel. 7. Not a soldier with Saul and Jonathan had a sword or a spear, right? Correct. 1 down. What Philistine outpost did Jonathan attack? He attacked Gibeah. He attacked at Gibeah. What city did Saul station 2,000 men? Michmash. Michmash. Okay. And what city was Jonathan and his troops stationed? In Gibeah. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. See you later.